Welcome to episode 25 of the Total Hockey Training Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Skahan. And before I introduce my next guest, I just want to remind everybody that we are rolling in our off-season program on trainheroic.com, Total Hockey Training. It's a year-round program, and if you're listening to this, you need a good program to follow, to take to the gym. Please follow that. It's $39 a month after a free 7-day trial. Hopefully you can log on and I'm on there all the time communicating with you. And also Total Hockey Training 2 is available. That is a collection of all my blog posts that I've written over the years in my journey as a strength and conditioning coach in the sport of hockey. Now, my next guest is a good friend of mine, Brian Bott. Brian is the owner and day-to-day operational manager of Sports Advantedge and Edge Baseball. And for a long time, Brian was the assistant strength and conditioning coach for the University of Wisconsin football team, where I believe they won a national championship and probably numerous Rose Bowls. Brian, welcome to the show, pal. How are you?
Hey, Sean, how are you? No national championship, but multiple Big Ten championships and multiple Rose Bowls. Yeah.
I thought you guys won a natty at one point.
I won a national championship in college as a baseball player.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, yep. So, but yeah, nothing. No, we were close. We were
Yeah,
close a couple years. Yeah, but yeah,
absolutely. Well, it's great to
yeah.
have you on, buddy.
No, I
So,
appreciate you having me.
yeah, this is great. I was on your show, um, the Get Your Edge podcast a few weeks ago, and we thought it'd be great to collaborate with each other and have each other on each other's show. So I'm happy to have you on. So tell the listeners about you, Brian. I mean, I got to know you when you were the assistant at Wisconsin. So tell us about you. Get into that baseball national championship, all that. Where'd you grow up and everything?
Sure, absolutely. So I grew up in Onalaska, Wisconsin. So I'm a Wisconsin native. I like to tell people I've lived in Wisconsin for 48 of my almost 50 years. Um, Went to high school there, played basketball and baseball. Played football when I was younger. When I got into high school, played baseball and basketball. Was very fortunate. I've been very fortunate as an athlete, as a coach, to have a lot of success and great teammates and great coaches around me. Um, in high school, I was we won a Legion state championship for baseball, and then my senior year, we won a state championship in basketball. And then was fortunate enough to go to the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh Division III baseball. And for those of you out there know, WIAC, or Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic, Conference is probably one of the top Division III conferences across all sports across the country. Um, we in my 4-year stint there, we took second. We won a national championship my sophomore year, took third and third. So we were really good. Played
Yeah.
with Jared Washburn, who actually pitched for the Anaheim Angels in the World Series,
Mhm.
um, and whatnot. And when I got done there, went to the University of North Dakota for 2 years, did my graduate work there with Paul Chapman, and great experience in strength and conditioning. Got to work with pretty much all their teams, got to run many of their teams as a GA, which was a great experience. Learn on the fly, go to school. So as you know, Sean, you're you know up in the morning, training a team in the morning. You're doing school stuff, you're doing program design. You have your teams till 6, and then you're at school till 9. 3 or 4 days a week, and it just really teaches you how to work hard and manage your time. After that, was very fortunate to get a call from John Detman, who is the head strength coach at Wisconsin. Over the course of my few years, after baseball and at North Dakota, was sending him resumes on a pretty much monthly basis through the mail. We didn't really do a lot of email back there, but got hired on at Wisconsin. Was there for 13 years, so was there for the last 5 or 6 years, I believe, for Barry Alvarez, and then all of Brett Bielema's tenure at Wisconsin. Very successful the last 3 years. We were there. We were 3-time Big Ten champs, played 3 consecutive Rose Bowls, coached some of the best in all of football. Was able to work with many of those guys, and after Brett left, Gary Anderson was brought on, and was just a different kind of feel for the way the program was going, which was fine. Really good people, but it was not just quite what I was used to. Plus, I was going through a divorce,
Mhm.
and I looked at it as if I was going to spend my time away from my kids, I wanted to do it on something that was a little bit more on my terms. So that's when I left. I resigned in June of 2013 and started Sports Advantage. And, we opened our first gym in 2014 in Verona, and now we have 7 gyms across the state of Wisconsin, and we consult with, over a dozen high schools. So we do a lot, with, across the board in the state of Wisconsin.
That is that is incredible. That's a great story. So you talked about that conference that in the baseball conference that you played in college.
Yeah.
Like when I think about that, I think about strong D3 hockey. But also I think back to the Division III National Football Championship this past season, and Wisconsin Whitewater, I think, was in it, correct?
I think so. I know they were a major player, them in lacrosse. We
Yeah.
always there's always one or two schools, Oshkosh, and even River Falls. There's always one or two schools that are vying for a national championship in not only football but most sports.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this, Sean, or not, but the indoor national championships for track, the top 4 teams were WEAC teams, which is
Wow.
off the charts.
That's unreal. So I was going to say, I remember that I believe there was probably 19,000 fans at a Wisconsin Whitewater. Maybe it was their final home game because Mount Union's always up there, right, for the national
Yes.
championship.
Yep. Yep.
I want to say
Yep.
like 19,000, 20,000 fans for a Whitewater home game.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it might have been the UW lacrosse game. I
Okay.
know it was very highly attended. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they're awesome games. I mean, a lot of those kids could be playing on Saturday in a bigger stadium, that's for sure. You
Yeah,
know,
that's really
so
neat.
it's really good it's good sports across the board.
That's awesome. And so growing up, obviously, as a Wisconsin native, I got to think the Badgers must have been a pretty big deal. And you probably landed your dream job at that time in your career, correct?
Yeah, at that time in my career, that was the only job I wanted.
Hmm.
I'll be completely honest with you. Moving to North Dakota was really special. I met so many good people that I still am in contact with today. Friends and players, things like that. But, I'm a Wisconsin person and I wanted to be back in Wisconsin. And, what Barry Alvarez was able to do while I was, younger and in high school and in college, as far as building that program, that was something that I wanted to be a part of and continue to take it to the next level.
That's awesome. And you certainly did that. And so I think when you left to go to Wisconsin, they made that position into a full-time position at North Dakota. So I also work for Chappie as well.
Yep.
And you mentioned it. What I'll say about working with Chappie, it was unbelievable, just a great human being, a lot of energy, a lot of positivity, a lot of fun to be around. And what I remember distinctly was that he let you run your own teams. He let you, I think, women's basketball, women's volleyball, baseball. There was a few teams that were under my direction, and I got to design the programs at a young age. And we discuss them, but he cared, but he provided an opportunity for me to learn what it was like to work with head coaches and to design programs and to be a part of those teams. So I really respect him for that, and I'm sure you feel the same way, right?
Yeah. I mean, just the experience that, you know, you got to have at North Dakota was unbelievable
Hmm.
because it was like a community, right? I mean, it kind of everybody was looking out for everybody else. But like with Chappie, I'll never forget the first day. He goes, "Okay," he goes, "Put together the program," and I'm like, and I had never really had experience working in Excel or creating a document. And he was just like, and he came back in and the computer was still blank. And I was just like, I know the exercises I want. I just don't know how to put them into cells. And
Right.
so he goes, I do that with everybody. I want to see where your starting knowledge is, which is on the computer, which, as I think a lot of people in strength and conditioning, all they think about is program design. They don't think about all the intricacies that go into the presentation of it,
Yeah.
uh, percentages and how you show it on a workout card or anything like that. So he was great. Like you said, it was a great atmosphere to work in. It was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
It was demanding. You know what I mean? It was very demanding, but I couldn't think of a better way to start off my strength and conditioning career than the way I did, because it really propelled me into where I was able to go next. And that's, kind of what you're supposed to have in like a graduate assistant. It's supposed to set you up for success for the next thing. And it definitely did that.
That's awesome. I remember vividly how attention to detail he was with those cards.
Oh
They had to
God.
they had to look, they were on like card stock back then, right? And they had to be
Oh
just
yeah.
perfect with the logo and all that. And
Yep.
yeah, those were fun times. I
Yep.
remember that.
For sure.
Well, that's great, man. So talk about starting Sports Advantage. Like, you mentioned that, but a lot of work and a lot of effort went into that business. So talk about how you went from one facility to all of them.
Yeah. I mean, when I started the gyms, it's kind of the learn as you go. I don't have a business background. I don't have a marketing background. I know how to train athletes. And that was like, okay, if I can get them in the door, they're not going anywhere. And that's really been our mantra, moving forward, is like, we just got to get the kids in the door because our results will come. And so, when I started it, it was like one of those things where I didn't really know like the direction we wanted to go. I just knew that this is what I love to do. I love to be around the kids. I knew that I could impact them. And so we kind of started off, and as the first year or two, I think like any, and I consider myself still young back then, sports performance gym owner, your thought is you want to create something like an Exos, or, these big monstrosity of facilities, and to have everything, right? To have basically like a college weight room setting in your facility, right? Where you have everything you can possibly imagine. Well, when you start to look at the dollars and cents of what all that stuff costs, that's becomes very hard to be feasible in northern, states and things like that. So, um, I knew that we wanted to do something where we could impact as many people as possible. And I was starting to get some really good staff. And that was where I changed my thought process of, okay, we're just going to stay in Verona and do this, as to, I want to give these staff, these guys and these ladies, an opportunity to advance their career and be a part of something really special. So that's why we started expanding um, outside of just Verona, because I just had really good people
Mhm.
and I wanted to give them more. And so that's kind of where the expansion idea came from.
I love that. So where do you spend your time then? Like, I guess you are the
In the
operations.
car.
So yeah, are you bouncing around from gym to gym? Like, what's the proximity of all these facilities?
Sure. So we live in on the west side of Madison, which is real right near Verona, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Our main gym is about 5 minutes from my house, so I'm there probably once or twice a week. I pop in over there because we have our baseball academy over there as well. I'm over at Middleton a couple times a week. I work with, typically my pro athletes will go to Middleton right now because that's, where some of them live, and that's an easy proximity for some of the guys that play at Wisconsin right now that are able to come over there, and that's the easiest drive. Wanakee is about a half hour away. So that Wanakee was our third gym. And I ran that gym for about 2 years before I turned it over to Grant, as we really started to expand. And that was a really fun thing because we were in a new community and high level athletes over there, high level parent participation in their athletes. And so that's been a great gym for us. I try and get over there once a week just to at least catch him, but he's really dialed in on a lot of things, so I don't spend as much time over there. Oconomowoc and Menominee Falls, which are in Milwaukee, I probably get out there, once every couple weeks just to check in with Tyler Leonard, who runs our Menominee Falls one, and then TJ Pat, who runs our Oconomowoc facility. Our Oconomowoc facility is actually located in the Lake Country Dockhound Stadium. So it's in a baseball stadium, which is really cool. And then at Beaver Dam, I usually connect with Connor, who's our director over there, a couple times a week. I'll pop in there, but not as much, just because it's a smaller gym and it's kind of more just a smaller gym. And then Appleton is our newest gym, and my son Cameron is the director there. So I spend at least one day there, kind of in an overnight, because that's a little farther out of our normal gym radius.
Mhm.
And so just building relationships there. And I have a lot of really good ties, and Sports Advantage has a lot of ties there. I mean, we consult with the Pier, Bayport, Appleton North. I have a great relationship with the staff at Kimberly. So we're really trying to build that area because I think we'll probably put at least one, maybe two more gyms in the Fox Valley. And so that's really our next, where we're looking at next. Probably gave those away, for any people that want to train there and our competitors, but whatever. At the end of the day, I think that's a great area that we really want to continue to build.
That's awesome. So tell me about, you mentioned Cameron, who's your son. He runs one of your facilities. What's that like? What's that like to know that your son is doing what his dad did and running the gym? Like, is that a pretty special thing? Is that, it's got to be awesome, right? I can only imagine.
Yeah, I mean, we did a grand opening last week, or on what depending on whatever this on April 9th, and we had Alec Ingold, who's a partner, and Brian Butch, former basketball player. They're both part owners in that gym, and to see Cameron stand with those two, and be able to introduce himself and talk about himself was maybe one of the most special probably moments of my life, not just in our gym. Um,
It's awesome.
because Cameron was my firstborn,
Hmm.
and we know as parents, right? You're like over, or everything is overdone with your firstborn, right? And I remember days when he was like in first and second grade, when he was in the Wisconsin weight room and picking stuff up and things like that. And in my laundry room, I still have pictures of Cameron when he was, a year old, 2 years old, with like Lee Evans, Chris Chambers, um, you know, so many Badger greats, when my kids were young, and when I opened Sports Advantage, his group of friends were the kind of the first group that really trained at our gym. So he's been training under our systems for, the whole time, he'll tell everyone, as I will agree. He wasn't the greatest, he didn't have a lot of great athletic gifts, so he wasn't, overly tall. He wasn't really fast. But everything that he can do is because of what he did training. He worked his tail off in the weight room, and built himself into a really, really good high school football player, which is always the goal for us. I'm not someone that's going to profess that I'm going to put every kid in college, because we know that that's a two-way street. They have to work for it as well.
Hmm.
And he got the opportunity to play college football at Division III at Ripon, which is a very small Division III school in Wisconsin, and it was really the best experience, for him, that we could have picked, that he could have picked. He finished off a legendary coach's career. Coach Ernst retired after they got done, and they had, I think, the best season in Ripon history his senior year. And so he came on as an intern with us. My thing with him is you got to go through the process. So he interned for a summer, and then he worked with Grant and Wanakee, and the opportunity in Appleton presented itself, and in my opinion, you're never really ready. Sean. I mean, even us as college coaches, to open a private gym, I don't know if anybody's really truly ready to do that and understand all the intricacies. And so I said, you know all the things you need to know, from a training perspective. You interact with the kids as well as any trainer I have. He builds relationships at a high level with all ages. And so, when he took that microphone, it was really special for me because it it's just just because he's my son, yes, but also to see, our athletes, and this too, Sean, you see our athletes when they grow into manhood, if they don't get to be a professional or a college, whatever they're doing, however they're impacting people, to me, that's our legacy. Like, what are we doing for the next generation to teach them how to impact others? And to me, the fact that he's doing it, in red and black with our logo on every day, it's really special to me.
Yeah, that's got to be just, like you said, really special, but you must be so proud. And are you, I mean, you have a lot of staff under your direction running these facilities. Are you a little harder on him? Are you softer
Yep.
on him? Or are you pretty much the same with all of them? I have to ask that one.
So, there's an expectation that
Mm.
comes with being a Sports Advantage director. And it was funny because I interviewed I interviewed a guy that I want to bring onto our team. And I said, well, tell me what you've heard, because we went through and I know the kid already. And so we are going through and I said, well, tell me what you've heard about working for Sports Advantage. And he goes, to be honest with you, he goes, I heard you can be really hard to work for. I said, no. I said, you just got to work hard.
Mm-hmm. I
I said,
love
that's all I
that.
expect. I said, you just work. I said, you seem to work really hard. I said, I'm never going to expect you to do more than I do. I'm going to be the pace setter, or at least attempt to be, so you guys can see what needs to be done. For Cameron, we have a code. I'll say, hey, this is Dad talking to you right now,
Yep.
and I'll be like,
Right.
and then they'll be, I'm your boss right now, so you better open your ears up on this one, or I'm your boss. Hey, great job. You know what I mean? And
Awesome.
so, I, we have a standard. Do we drop below the standard sometimes? Of course we do, right? Nobody's perfect, but
Mm-hmm.
our goal is to hold our standard at the highest level, and that also entails, what the gyms look like, what's the experience of the kids, um, what are our results, so many other things, our social media, everything we try and do at the highest level. And when it's not done at the highest level, then there's conversations that are had. And my staff also has open door policy. If they see something that I'm not doing up to our standard, I want them to share that with me. I don't want it to be like, oh, Brian gets to do this, but we have to go do this. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? I don't expect people to get up at 5 or 6 in the morning unless I'm doing it every day.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't expect, a conversation I had with one of my trainers just today. Um, is in one of our facilities. They're trying to get an eval set and they don't have someone else to help. And they said, would you be able to do it? And I said, well, what time is it at? And they told me the time. And I said, well, let me know if, because it was either today or Friday. I said, well, let me know. If they can't do it on Friday, then let me know if you need it tonight. And the response was, well, I'll try and do it on Friday or Saturday because if it's not convenient for you, I said, being successful isn't about convenience. I said, if it has
Right.
to be tonight, I'll be there. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
And I try and do that with all of our staff. Like if they need me, I'm going to do everything I can to be there for them. Because if you do that enough, it becomes ingrained in them that if we need something, to be done extra or whatever, that's just in their nature. You know what I mean? And if we're all doing that together for each other, and if we look at our responsibilities for the athletes and families first, just like a college setting, just like a high school setting, that we're in a service industry for these families. If you view it like that, the return is multiplied.
Awesome. That's awesome. And I think about, it's funny, I can only imagine what that's like. That's gonna be a lot of fun being a dad. But I remember when I was younger, I didn't have kids of my own. I couldn't stand seeing kids in the weight room. It's like I couldn't stand it. Like even like my pro players in Anaheim, I'd be like, "Oh God, they brought their kids today." Just hear me out, everyone. But like then I have my own kids, and then like my weight room became, I say this reference, romper room. Do you remember romper room on TV? Like,
Absolutely, I
yeah,
do.
it
Yeah,
became romper room, stability balls everywhere, and like I was like, bring them all in, and like
yeah,
it's kind of funny because I remember like my young self being like, no, this program is more important. We can't have kids running around in here. And then I'm like, have my own kids running around, and same thing with my boys, like, you know, hanging out with guys from the Ducks and everything, and then to see them grow up and like you, I started training them. Well, my younger guy, I'm training him now, but my older guy, he's gone on and he's doing good things now. I was working with him, he's probably 11 or so. So yeah, that's pretty special. That's really cool. I'm glad. Thanks for sharing that.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I see the West Side Barbell banner in the background, and talk about, from what I understand, the conjugate system is your philosophy at your facilities. So talk about that, just for my reference. Like, I'm guilty of thinking when I think conjugate, I think, okay, we're s- speed box squatting, we're speed benching, and then we're doing max effort work for squat assisted exercises, and same thing for bench. Like, how, correct me if I'm wrong, first of all. Two, how are you applying that method that I would think was for power lifters how are you applying it to the athletic model?
Well, I think, that's the common thought process that most people get, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
who developed it? Louis Simmons, who had, without a doubt, probably the greatest powerlifting gym of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the conjugate system was formed in this, basically in the Soviet Union at a club called the Dynamo Club in the 70s, where they started finding that the athletes, long story short, they started finding that the athletes liked having variety,
Mm-hmm.
in their exercises. And so Louis basically took that thought process and then took what the Bulgarians do, which is basically they max out like 6 exercises every day.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you look at the Bulgarian weightlifters, they'll do, and this is in Olympic lifts. So Louis took it, into the powerlifting thought process. But when we start looking at it from our perspective, from an athlete's perspective, it hits, in my opinion, all areas of athletic development. Right, maximal strength is the king of strength. It's a foundation for young athletes. The stronger they get, we know the less likely they are to get hurt, and the quicker that they'll recover from injury, and they're able to do more. And then dynamic effort, which is the second. So you have max effort method, dynamic effort method. Dynamic effort method is basically taking, you know, whatever the exercise you're using, whether it's a box squat or a free squat, and looking at your, 1 rep max, because we do 1 rep maxes. I'm not a big, rep scheme or rep max guy. We'll get kids that'll come in and I'll be like, well, what do you squat? And they'll be like, oh, I squat 410. And I'm like, well, that's kind of odd. Like most people are like 405, most people don't put a 2.5 on.
Right.
He's like, I do 345 for 5. I said, well, then you do 345 for 5, because, to me, percentages are so variable. Like, Sean, you could be a 400-pound squatter. I could be a 400-pound squatter, and I could do 350 for 6, and you could do 350 for 3. But
Right.
you just handle heavier loads better than I do. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I'm more of a rep kind of, however I'm made. And so, we will do, singles with our kids once they're ready for it. It's not just week 1, hey, we're going to max you in the back squat today. Never. Absolutely never, right? It's technique first. But you have your max effort method, dynamic method. The dynamic method is taking a percent, whether it's 50 to 60% of that, max, doing it for anywhere from 20 to 30, 36 reps, within a short rest period of time. So it could be 9x3, 5x5, 12x2, 10x2. We rotate that, but it's in that 20 to 36 rep range, anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds rest between your sets. So it's, you're getting a lot of volume, and that's where I think people don't understand the conjugate method is you get a ton of volume in a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Volume is, weight moved times sets times reps. So my thought process, why it's so great for athletes is you can do 3 sets of 10 for an athlete, but the speed on the bar is going to diminish as the set goes on. Or I can do 10 sets of 3 of the exact same weight, but I'm moving the barbell exponentially faster. So we're doing the same volume. I'm just moving the bar faster, doing 10x3. And then we use accommodating resistance like bands and chains, to add 20 to 25% for the kids for that. But I think the biggest mistake where people start looking at the conjugate method is they're like, well, that's all you guys do. No, that's like 10 to 15% of our workload through the week.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes into the accessory exercises. And the accessories are really, where the gains are made, right? Because, all 7 of our gyms use this system, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to Verona, their max effort days could look different than what Wanakees look like or what, Oconomowocs look like, because our directors need to understand the system at such a high level. They need to know what accessories to program to bump those main lifts up, and also look at, from an injury prevention or injury mitigation standpoint, how we can, make the athletes unbreakable. Ben Herbert talked about that last week. He want to
Saw
make you
that.
harder to break. So 70 to 80% of our work is in accessories and finding, single leg work, posterior chain work, rows, vertical pulls, auxiliary dumbbell work, reverse hypers, obviously. And then we're constantly rotating our max effort days. So, from a like bench press perspective, one day you may do a close grip fat bar bench. One day you may do a floor press. One day you may do a dumbbell bench for 3. One day you may do a regular bench. One day you may do a bench with chains. One day you may do and so we usually pick 8 to 12 exercises. The traditional West Side is that they're just changing exercises. 52 weeks, you could be doing a different exercise. To me, we take it into the sports realm, like where we're talking here, as well as the middle school and high school realm, where they're still learning, right? They're
Mhm.
not perfectionist lifters like a bench press guy, like a Laura Phelps or a Dave Tate, when they were doing, their bench press technique is such a high level.
Mhm.
Um, our kids are learning how to do the movement. So there's going to be some strength carryover with that. And then, you know, with that, then we take that same principle into our speed work. So, we have absolute speed days and acceleration days when you're talking linear, and we're constantly changing how we time those exercises, because the big thing is the old feed the cats, 10-yard flies, max effort, things like that. That's great. But my belief, very similar to the strength adaptation, is once your body's used to doing it, okay, you're going to have diminishing returns. So you can keep running your 20 to 30-yard builds and a 10-yard fly and keep measuring it. My thought is you're going to diminish. And so we take, we call it conjugate speed. Now we're taking variable buildup, so 5, 10, 20, yard buildups, and we're timing different fly increments, 5, 10, 15. So sometimes we're going a shorter fly than a 10. Sometimes we're doing a longer, a 15-yard fly, and we're still using, absolute speed as that, 20 to 30-yard build with a 10-yard fly as your measurable. That's your absolute speed measurable, but we're training it in different ways.
Mhm.
And so that's one of the things that we do that's very unique. And then change of direction, just hit all aspects of what we do. We've really toned down our change of direction, because I think even on our podcast, we talk, kids are doing so much right now, right? They're playing multiple sports. We have kids playing multiple sports at one time.
Mhm.
So the amount of change of direction they're getting in sport is probably good enough for them. So we toned down our change direction into more like deceleration work, um, you know, two-step, lateral movements, things like that, just to take some of the stress off the kids. I hope that explained. I went into the speed stuff
Love
because
it.
my thought, Sean, is that like your speed work should mirror your strength philosophy,
Yeah.
right? You can't
Yeah.
have, all this other stuff, because if we're doing an absolute speed day, we typically do it on a max effort lower body day, because we want the body to know, hey, and then that's typically when we do our max jumping as well. We want the kid's body to know, hey, we are going after every single thing we're doing today at our highest capacity, at the top level we can do. So that's why we do it like that.
I love it. So I got a couple questions then. Like I remember doing some dynamic speed work, whether it's
Yes.
bench or box squatting, and like there's a conditioning a component to that as well, correct?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The I'll say this, the dynamic lower body day to me is the best day in training. I just had Tanner Bortolini in from the Badgers center, who will be drafted probably in the first couple rounds. He had his first dynamic lower, day with us. And for our football guys, it's you do a warm up, you do a couple sprints, you do 10 to 20 jumps, and it's 9x3 in the box squat with 30 seconds rest. And then it's 10x1 or 10x2 in a sumo pull. You get about a minute between, switching the bar every 15 seconds in for the sumo pull. And then we do, 8 prowler sprints. So like a metabolic portion of it.
Hmm.
The first couple times I have any of these guys, I remember having Alec Ingold in, and he could barely make it through the rest of the workout, because it's so demanding on the system, because you have to go at a high level. And then we just do some sled drags and reverse hypers, and they're out of there. But to me, that's the best way to condition the kids, because they're getting an explosive component to it. They're getting a volume component to it. They're getting, their heart rate is up, however you want to talk about it. We're getting some metabolic work in, but we're using sled drags and sleds versus running, gassers and stuff like that. Because quite honestly, a guy like him or Rob Havenstein or Travis Frederick, NFL guys that I've trained recently, the pounding on their joints is what wears them down.
Hmm.
So hitting them in a way that's applicable to their sport, right? Same with hockey, right? I mean, a
Mhm.
line change, what, every 30 or 45 seconds, somewhere in there, sometimes a little longer, maybe a little, right? So
Yep.
if you get them in that mode, right now, it just carries over to what they have to do.
No, that's awesome. And my next question is those young middle schoolers, like you must see their absolute strength just increase dramatically in a short amount of time. Am I wrong or?
No, absolutely. As long as and again, it comes down to how willing are they to do the very remedial stuff at the highest level.
Hmm.
How good can you get at a goblet squat? How good can you get at a body weight box squat? How good can you get at at a hex bar deadlift? So if you can master some of those, basic what we would call introductory movements, then we know that you're ready for the barbell. Until
Okay.
then, same thing with dumbbells, right?
Yeah.
All of our kids start with dumbbells before they start with the bar because there's a stability factor and just a proprioception factor for the kids. And so when we know that they can master that, then they're ready for the barbell. And it's like anything, seventh graders, if they know how to do it right and they're grabbing a barbell, like the excitement they have, that takes over. Plus,
Yeah.
they just love being able to do what the older kids do. And we do. We see some incredible gains.
That's awesome. And so talk about like do you load your speed work? Are you pulling sleds? Are you bands or
Yep.
whatever when you're running your flies ever?
So yeah, so some of our flies we'll do with like a sled behind, and we'll actually
Mhm.
time those as well on like acceleration days. Typically our absolute speed days are all free, but when we do acceleration work, so we'll do like a sled or a prowler, heavy march, leading, and we'll do some contrast work with that as well.
Mhm.
So like the kids will do like a heavy prowler march and then into we like band release sprints. So you're holding onto a band behind, kind of like the old bullet belts, but the bullet
Mhm.
belts get a little choppy. So you kind of hold the band, you lean it forward and release it, and the band kind of shoots you out. Um, we'll do banded resisted starts where the partner's holding behind. So a lot of that stuff is in our acceleration work. But yeah, we love doing that stuff.
I love that. That's awesome. So that's every facility is incorporating that philosophy. And like, are you designing the programs for the day, or every
No.
manager has their own
Every
capability to
director
design?
has, yeah, and it goes back to kind of what we talked about. They have to know the
Yeah,
kids in their gym,
that's awesome. That is
which is
really cool.
which is very unique. Like you have one facility, right, Sean?
Yeah. Hmm.
So you're designing the programs for your facility. There are places that are like a chain or whatever, and all their people have the same programs to pick from. Well, that's that's only part of the puzzle. You know what I mean? Like I can do an evaluation, then put you in this group, you know what I mean? And I may hit, 75% of your needs, but if you're not basing your program on what you see in your gym or what you see with your kids, you're leaving, some of the dessert on the table, so to speak.
Hmm. That makes sense. So you evaluate every athlete and you prescribe them accordingly to what they demonstrated in their evaluation.
Yeah, I mean that's where we start them. So
Awesome.
our evaluation is very basic. We use a lot of Great Cook FMS stuff.
Hmm.
We'll test their jumps because everybody can get on a jump man and jump. But we don't test their 10. We don't test their 40. We don't test their pro agility. We don't test their bench or their squat because at the end of the day, most of the kids coming in don't know how to do the drills right or don't know how to do the movements right. So, if I wanted to be like kind of a sidewinder for a salesman, I could put a guy on a pro agility and we could time him. And then 2 weeks later, because I've taught the kid how to do the drill, he's probably going to drop like half a second and be
Hmm.
like, well, look at all the improvement your kid had,
Right.
and then all of a
Right.
sudden they don't improve for 6 months. You know what I mean? Because you don't know where to take them from there. You know how to teach the drill, but you don't know how to, you know how to train the drill, and we see that a lot too. It's like, well, they're getting improvements in 3 weeks. Okay. Well, what did they get in 6 months?
Right.
You
Well,
know,
they've never done a drill before, so
no.
they're going to be bad at it. They're going to learn
Yeah.
how to do it and apply force to the ground and then improve. Then everyone looks like a genius, right? And it's the
Yeah.
same with bench and squat, you
It's
know?
like playing catch with a baseball, right, Sean?
Right.
Like you,
Right.
you can only get hit in the head so many times when your dad throws you the ball before you realize you got to put the glove up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point. That's awesome, man. I appreciate the talk about
Yep.
the nuts and bolts of your program design. Really incredible. and also for me as a business owner to learn how you've built your empire, which knowing you're probably not even done yet, right?
Well, I want to correct you on that. It's not an empire. Okay. We like to look at ourselves like the rebellion.
Okay,
We
got
get
it.
it. We're the rebellion.
I
The
love
empire
that.
always got beat in Star Wars. You know what I
I
mean? And
love that. Yep.
we're the rebellion because I think we go a little bit against the norm. You know what I mean? Which is fine because, just to kind of expound on what I said at the very beginning, we partner with high schools. We do consulting for high schools. We're not in the high schools so much, but we consult for them, which means we're educating the coaches how to get better, which is really completely against the private training sector mantra, right? Because the private sector is you should be training with us versus training at your school because we know more. And I tell this to all of our schools, so this is not a surprise. We probably do a better job than you do at your school because we have smaller groups. Typically we're going to have more kids that are in tune with wanting to be there. So that's just how it's going to work. But we're going to educate you to make you better. Because at the end of the day, if we can help the high schools in the state of Wisconsin, first and foremost, that's the best case scenario for our kids. We want to impact as many kids as we can. And if we can educate our coaches, because most high school coaches get a certain dollar allotment for, education that they can go out and do. And most high school coaches aren't going to go out and pay for a lot of extra. And I know that most of our football coaches in the state are going to pay money to go learn how to run a 4-3, or they're going to learn how to do a cover three, or two deep, or whatever.
Right.
Basketball, they're going to learn, how to run a matchup zone. So by investing in us, we bring the education to them. If the school educates, invests in us, we bring the education to them. So the coaches, we want the coaches to go learn about their sport and be the best coach they can be. We're going to bring the education to the school to make you better. And then in return, you're always going to have kids that want more,
Mm-hmm.
right? We had that at Wisconsin. We had kids going to other facilities, at Wisconsin to do a little extra work here or to do a little extra work there. I'm sure, that in the pro sector, right? You're going to
Yeah.
have guys that have their private trainers. To me, it just is a level of trust.
Yeah.
So if like one of our schools is like, hey, we've got 4 or 5 of our kids that want to do some extra work, they're going to send them to us because we're working together. And we're going to have what's in the best interest of the kids. You know what I mean? Okay, you did this at school today. Here are the things that we want you to do in the gym. So it's really building a level of trust, but it's also trying to build the level of strength and conditioning in the state of Wisconsin.
I love it. So if you don't mind me asking real quick, like what is that level of consulting you have with the team? So I'm just thinking about it, for myself with all the high
Yeah.
school hockey programs around here.
Which a lot of them should consult with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just put that out there. If you're listening, you would be the first guy I would call. At
Appreciate
the end
that.
of the day, you have a guy that's done it at the highest level and a guy who cares about kids. There's no greater resume built, for a coach than that, right? He's worked with the best and he cares about kids. Those are for me, that's my top hiring criteria. How much do you care about other people?
Mm-hmm.
And if you care about other people, I can teach you anything else you need to know. We can figure the rest out. But if you don't care, you're really going to have a hard time. The consulting part, we have a three-pronged approach. The first is the program design. So what I did is, and Robert Murdoch, who's my kind of my assistant, he's like one of my top assistants, who heads up our internship programs and really helps me head up the consulting program. We sat down and we looked at how we wanted to develop this because we did like trial runs for a year with a big school, a medium school, and a small school to see if our systems would work. And then once we figured they did, we figured out how can we make this something that we can brand and send out to the schools. So the first is the program design. We took the thought process of BFS, right?
Mm-hmm.
BFS had a great idea, but
Mm-hmm.
they send the same programs out to every school. Okay. We send programs based on the school's needs, the size of their weight room, the days they're training based off our system. So again, it's more program design, right? We're not sending the same program to every school.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's the first part. The second part is, I love the train heroic and the team builder stuff as well, as long as it's not in the weight room. As far as like the kids holding, their stuff,
Thanks.
especially in the high school setting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the private setting, if a kid's doing in there by himself and he needs his workout, that's great. But we know in the high school setting, when you have 30, 40 kids on their phone, chances are they're probably Snapchatting each other. They're probably TikToking, all this
Mhm.
other stuff. So we created a similar thought process called the Coach's Edge, where the coaches have access to this platform. So they can see every exercise that they could possibly have to do. So is it as usable as Team Builder Train Heroic? Maybe not. But at the end of the day, if you're prepared and you look at each exercise, you'll know exactly how to execute them. And then the third part is the education, Sean. And that's to me the part that sets us apart from everybody else. We do educational calls. We do seminars at the school if they request it. We'll go meet with the kids if they request it. Just providing extra educational value for everybody, parents. We become, the bulletproof vest for the coaches because parents want to ask some questions. Maybe coaches know or don't know. It's really hard for a parent to, you know, kind of argue with someone that's been doing it for, a quarter of a century.
Mhm.
And I can say, no, that's not, and I have no problem to a parent saying, no, that's not right.
Mhm.
I don't know where you saw that, but that's not right. And so I think we become a protective feature for the coaches as well, which I think is really
Awesome.
important for them.
That's awesome. That's just a great idea, by the way. Well, awesome, Botter. Where can people find out more about you? I know you're on social media. I know you have an awesome podcast. Tell the listeners, like, if they want to learn more about you, more about Sports Advantage. Maybe it's a young student in Wisconsin
Sure.
who wants to become a strength coach, or maybe a hockey player, in Wisconsin that wants to train properly. Talk about where
Yeah.
they can find you.
Yeah, we would love. We work with the Brookfield Stars, who took second at state this year.
Awesome.
Yeah, my Twitter handle is at 23botter. That's the first one. I'm on Instagram. I think it's Brian Bott 23. Yeah, I'm fetish with my high school and college number. Um, but if you search Sports Advantedge, EDGE, on Instagram, we have 7 sites. We have the Coach's Edge Consulting site, the Get Your Edge podcast site. So we have really 9, and Edge Baseball. So we really have 10 Instagram sites. If you just search Sports Advantage and then, either Verona, Beaver Dam, Appleton, Wanakee, Middleton, Oconomowoc, Menominee Falls, you'll get to see it. And we're big on social media of showing you what we do.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I want you if you're a parent listening, you'll see what we do and how we do it. And you'll see some of the crazy stuff that our kids are able to do. So that's Instagram. Our website, www.sportsadvantedge.com, or just sportsadvantedge.com. I don't know if you even need the www anymore. Is a great way to find it. And then my email address is Brian, Brian, at sportsadvantedge. So it's edge.com instead of age, sportsadvantedge.com. Email me with questions. I take a lot of pride in responding, within 24 hours to any email I get that's not a spam. Um, and so that's how you can find me. So
Love it. Well, Brian, this has been unbelievable, just especially getting into the nuts and bolts of your program, and then just hearing how you grind it out every day. I have a lot of respect for that because you had a transition in your life away from college sports to doing this, like myself, and I respect your work ethic and your passion, and see how you're growing things. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us, and also appreciate you coming on today, man.
well, it really means a lot, Sean. I mean, you're one of the standards and in strength and conditioning, not just hockey. And I really appreciate our friendship and being able to collaborate on different things and just talk through things. And I'm really I'm really happy that the state of Wisconsin sorry, state of Minnesota, has someone like you, leading young athletes because you're going to do it the right way. You're going to give them the best. And this is what it's all about.
Hmm.
It's really what it's all about, giving the next generation of kids the opportunity to have things that maybe you and I didn't get and be taught the right way, how to do things, not just training wise, but character wise, discipline wise. So I'm really grateful, that we've connected and that you had me on. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Well, thanks again. And yeah, we'll see you next time, Brian.
Sounds good, Sean.
All
Take
right,
care.
thank you.
Yep.
Take care. Bye now.